In this video, I will address Muhammad's marriage to Zayd's wife, adopting a new approach that I find more logical, wherein I will directly share what is written in Islamic sources. Therefore, it will be up to you to understand or draw conclusions from these sources. Let's begin with the Hadith regarding how Zayd became part of Muhammad's family. Tabari tells that Zayd was purchased by a merchant of Mecca, Hakim ibn Hisham, who gave the boy as a present to his aunt, Khadija bint Khuwaylid. Ibn Sa'd's Tabaqat states the following. They took him to the Ukaz market and offered him for sale. He was purchased by Hakim ibn Hisham ibn Khuwaylid for 400 dirhams. When the Messenger of Allah married Khadija, she gave him to him, and the Messenger of Allah took him. According to what is written in Kitab al-Sittah, when Khadija gifted 8-year-old Zayd to Muhammad, Muhammad had not yet received the prophethood. A while later, Muhammad declared Zayd as his son. The narration goes as follows. The Kalbis went and told his father, who said, "My son, by the Lord of the Kaaba." They described his situation and who he was with. Harita and Ka'b, the sons of Sherahil, then set a ransom him. They went to Makkah and asked about the Prophet and were told that he was in the mosque. They entered and said, "Son of Abdullah, son of Abd al-Muttalib, son of Hashim, son of the master of his people. You are the people of Haram and its neighbors and are at its house. You help those in distress and feed captives. We have come about our son who was with you. Be gracious to us and good to us in his ransom. We will give you his ransom." He asked, "Who is it?" "Zayd ibn Harita," they answered. The Messenger of Allah asked, "Will you accept something else?" They said, "What is it?" He said, "Let him choose. If he choose you, then he is yours without ransom. If he chooses me, by Allah, I am not the one who imposed a choice over anyone who chose me." They said, "You are more than fair and good to us." He called him and said, "Do you recognize these men?" He answered, "Yes." He asked, "Who are they?" He replied, "This is my father and my uncle." He said, "I am the one you know, and you have experienced what a companion I have been to you. Choose me or them." Zayd said, "I am not one who would ever choose someone over you. You are like a father and mother to me." They said, "Bother you, Zayd. Will you choose slavery over freedom and over your father, uncle, and the people of your house?" "Yes," he said, "I have seen something from this man because of which I would never choose anyone over him." When the Messenger of Allah saw that, he took him to the Hijr and said, "Whoever is present, bear witness that Zayd is my son. I inherit from him and he from me." When his father and uncle saw that, they were happy and left. So he was called Zayd ibn Muhammad until Allah brought Islam. The narrations indicate that among the pagan Arabs, it was not a customary or well-regarded practice to marry the wife of an adopted or biological son. This was met with disapproval. The 40th and 5th verses of the surah al-Ahzab in the Quran emerged in response to their reaction to this situation. The subsequent narration continues as follows. The Messenger of Allah married him to Zaynab bint Jahsh, whose mother was Umaymah bint Abd al-Muttalib ibn Hisham, and then Zayd divorced her and the Messenger of Allah married her. The hypocrites talked about that and attacked him, saying, "Muhammad forbade marrying the ex-wives of sons, and yet he marries the wife of his son Zayd." Then Allah revealed, "Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, but the Messenger of Allah and the final seal of the prophets." And he said, "Call them after their fathers." From the day he was called Zayd ibn Harita, and people were called by their fathers' names. Al-Miqdad was called Ibn Amr, when before that he was called Al-Miqdad ibn al-Aswad, since al-Aswad ibn Abd Yaghith had adopted him. Tabari mentions that among the pagan Arabs, it was prohibited to marry the spouse of an adopted individual. The verse states, "Allah has not made your adopted sons your true sons." This part of the verse abolishes the pre-Islamic institution of adoption. According to pre-Islamic custom, a person would take another's child and adopt them, considering the adopted child as their own biological offspring. The one who adopted a child couldn't marry them, they could inherit from each other and were considered relatives in terms of privacy. However, this verse abolishes this practice by saying, an adopted child is not equivalent to a biological child. Muhammad responded to those who criticized him for his marriage by reading verses 38 and 39 of Surah Al-Ahzab by saying, "There is not to be upon the Prophet any discomfort concerning that which Allah has imposed upon him. This is the established way of Allah with those prophets who have passed on before. And ever is the command of Allah a destiny decreed. Allah praises those who convey the messages of Allah and fear Him and do not fear anyone but Allah, and sufficient is Allah as accountant." According to Islamic scholars, the reason for Muhammad marrying the wife of his adopted son Zayd was to demonstrate that an adopted child does not hold the same status as a biological child. Tabari, in relation to this matter, states the following. Zayd bin Haritha, who was raised in the presence of the Prophet, was also referred to as Muhammad's son and was commonly addressed as such. However, after the revelation of this verse, such a reference was prohibited. Later, as it will be explained, in accordance with Allah's command on this matter, the Prophet married Zaynab bint Jahsh, who was divorced by Zayd bin Haritha. Thus was demonstrated that adoption child does not make someone equivalent to a biological child. So, how Muhammad married his adopted son's ex-wife Zaynab? Let's explore the process, referring to the related narrations and verses. Around 625, Muhammad proposed Zaynab to marry his adopted son, Zayd. Their marriage lasted less than 2 years. According to some narrations, it is mentioned that Zaynab did not want to marry Zayd, but eventually agreed upon Muhammad's insistence. Here is a narration found in Sunan ibn Majah. Zayd bin Haritha fell ill, and the Messenger of Allah visited him. Zaynab bint Jahsh was at his bedside. She asked for permission to leave, and the Prophet lowered his head in shyness. Zayd then said, "O Messenger of Allah, I will divorce her." The Prophet replied, "No, keep your wife." After this incident, Allah revealed the verse. Let's take a look at another Islamic source where this incident is also recounted with slightly different narrations. The Messenger of God came to the house of Zayd bin Haritha. Perhaps the Messenger of God missed him at that moment, so as to ask, "Where is Zayd?" He came to his residence to look for him, but did not find him. Zaynab bint Jahsh, Zayd's wife, rose to meet him. Because she was dressed only in a shift, the Messenger of God turned away from her. She said, "He is not here, Messenger of God. Come in, you who are as dear to me as Mif'athar and mother." The Messenger of God refused to enter. Zaynab had dressed in haste when she was told, "The Messenger of God is at the door." She jumped up in haste and excited the admiration of the Messenger of God, so that he turned away murmuring something that could scarcely be understood. However, he did say overtly, "Glory be to God the Almighty, glory be to God who causes hearts to turn." When Zayd came home, his wife told him that the Messenger of God had come to his house. Zayd said, "Why didn't you ask him to come in?" She replied, "I asked him, but he refused." "Did you hear him say anything?" he asked. She replied, "As he turned away, I heard him say, 'Glory be to God the Almighty, glory be to God who causes hearts to turn.'" So Zayd left, and having come to the Messenger of God, he said, "Messenger of God, I have heard that you came to my house. Why didn't you go in, you who are as dear to me as my father and mother?" "Messenger of God, perhaps Zaynab has excited your admiration, and so I will separate myself from her." The Messenger of God said, "Keep your wife to yourself." Zayd could find no possible way to approach her after that day. He would come to the Messenger of God and tell him so, but the Messenger of God would say to him, "Keep your wife." Zayd separated from her and left her, and she became free. As you can see, while Ibn Majah states, Muhammad saw Zaynab and uttered those words while Zayd was at home, other sources narrate that Zaynab was alone at home. However, in all accounts, the sequence of events remains consistent. That is, Zayd's intention to divorce Zaynab occurred after Muhammad saw her and spoke those words. The section in the Quran that is related to the mentioned narrations is found in Ahzab 37, and it reads as follows. And, remember, O Muhammad, when you said to the one on whom Allah bestowed favor and you bestowed favor, keep your wife and fear Allah, while you concealed within yourself that which Allah is to disclose. And you feared the people, while Allah has more right that you fear Him. So when Zayd had no longer any need for her, we married her to you in order that there not be upon the believers any discomfort concerning the wives of their adopted sons when they no longer have need of them, and ever is the command of Allah accomplished. There is a narration in Tirmidhi that says, when this ayah was revealed, but you did hide in yourself that which Allah will make manifest. About Zaynab bint Jahsh, Zayd had come to the Prophet complaining, and he wanted to divorce her, so he consulted with the Prophet. The Prophet said, keep your wife to yourself, and have taqwa of Allah. After Zaid and Zaynab divorced, Muhammad got married to her in the 5th year of the migration. At that time, Zaynab was 35 years old. Sources do not entirely agree on Zaynab's age. Some say she was 35, while others say she was 36 years old. There are 2 different accounts regarding their marriage. The first narration is as follows. While the Messenger of God was talking with Aisha, a fainting overcame him. When he was released from it, he smiled and said, who will go to Zaynab to tell her the good news, saying that God has married her to me? Then the Messenger of God recited, and when you said unto him on whom God has conferred favor, and you have conferred favor, keep your wife to yourself, and the entire passage. According to the second narrative, after her waiting period expired, Muhammad sent Zayd to Zaynab with a marriage proposal. When Zayd entered upon her, she was fermenting dough. Zayd describes that moment as follows. After her waiting period expired, the Prophet sent Zayd ibn Haritha to Zaynab with a marriage proposal. When Zayd entered upon her, she was fermenting dough. Zayd said, when I saw her, I developed a sense of awe for her in my chest, so much so that I could not bear to see her because the Prophet had mentioned her. Therefore, I turned my back towards her and said, Zaynab, the Prophet has sent me to you and has mentioned you regarding marriage. She said, I will make no decision until I solicit Allah's guidance. She then stood and began to pray in her place of prayer. The Quranic verse was revealed regarding this issue, whereupon the Prophet entered upon her without taking permission. As a result of this marriage, Zaynab considered herself superior to Muhammad's other wives, attributing this to Allah's intervention. When this ayah was revealed about Zaynab bint Jahsh, so when Zayd had completed his aim with her, we gave her to you in marriage, he said, she used to boast to the wives of the Prophet, your families married you to him, while Allah married me to him, from above the 7 heavens. At the end of this video, where I directly share Islamic sources without adding any commentary, I would like to ask Muslims 2 questions regarding the subject. I genuinely aim to learn your viewpoints and hold no ulterior motives. As you can see, pre-Islamic pagan Arabs considered adopted children equal to biological ones. Thus, they did not approve of Muhammad's action to marry his stepson's wife. What is your opinion on this matter? Imagine you are adopted. In this case, if your stepfather married your ex-spouse and your ex-spouse became your stepmother, would you be sad or would you not mind? According to Islamic sources, Muhammad became a prophet in 610 AD while he was 40 years old. He married Zaynab in 627 AD. So these events happened 17 years after he became a prophet. Why did Allah wait so long to reveal such an important issue as invalidating the tradition embraced by Arabs regarding the prohibition of marrying the wives of adopted sons?